Can anybody hear me? Seem to have a bit of problems going on here, and I'm not sure if I can overcome them. See, 16 people are in. Can anyone just type me a message if you can actually hear what I'm saying? Alright, I'll turn that off. See if that helps. Yes, can hear me. Great, can hear me. Thank you very much for everybody who's just popped in with that. I'm trying to sort out why I've got such a bad feed right now. So please, all of you, if you could just bear with me, we will get underway as soon as I have the issue a little sorted out. I have no idea why it's dropping, but we are suffering quite a bit on the stream with massive dropout. Yeah, Barbara, I see that as well. I am having an awful trouble. We've got a lot of high wind down here, which I think is affecting our streaming power, as it were. Hopefully it will start not buffering so much. I don't know why. No, I'm saying I've got a good connection, so please bear with me. We'll give it a little while longer to see if I'm stopping lagging. I can see myself moving, but the actual screen on the stream doesn't seem to be doing too much. So I'm going to keep moving around. Hopefully that will sort itself out. Ben, hi, help. Yeah, I don't know what's going on. Check all the unused apps are closed off. I thought I had. The only one I've got on, there's one there that could be causing a little issue. And that one off. Okay, the only one appears to be on is the okay, so hopefully we are getting back in. I was hoping to do a little bit of face with you. I don't know if that will happen. I will try it and see if it will work, and then hopefully we'll get underway. Good. Thank you, Keith. I appreciate that. Oh, look, it does seem to be moving. That's good. And things seem to be settling down. I'm just going to turn over to see if... No, that is frozen. So forget that. Let's go back to where we were. All right, okay. For some reason, my camera is frozen, so we're going to leave that alone. All right. Thank you so much for joining me tonight, and I do hope that you get over my frozen head there looking out the window. But here we go. All right, so assuming nothing else goes wrong, I'm going to, it's fine, this end, your hands are moving fine, thanks. Okay, everybody, if you have a question for me, Ben is in the hot seat moderating for me tonight, so if you see him on, exactly why that is. And yeah, if you've got a question, can you capitalize it and start it with a capital Q and capitalize your question as you type it? That way I will spot it a lot easier and can answer your questions. But we are going to do a lovely and beautiful White Ibis from, well, this one I saw in Ding Darling in Florida. a good number of years ago, and I sort of like the idea of doing it. I've painted many of them, both in oil and watercolor, as well as in doing a pastel here and there and acrylics. But I love the subject and I love these birds because they, I mean, this one, albeit it's on its own in the scene, but they often feed in little groups and sort of push their way through the waterways and sort of scythe in for invertebrates and stuff underneath or in through the mud, hence the beak. All right, so on the face of it, this looks like a very easy painting to make in many regards. For the frozen head was the converter in lead from the USB. Okay, yeah, I'm not going to worry about that now, Ben. I think I realised that. Thank you. Anyway, back to this. Yeah, on the face of it, it does look like a fairly simple painting to make. Water, bird, and yeah, to a point you'll be right. But how do we make sure that we get the lovely blue violets in the water, the lovely violets in the bird, and still maintain the paper enough without contaminating the areas of the brown and oranges through here, and also the beautiful white plumage with that degree of yellow and orange in it? If you go over the whole of the water, for instance, with a blue wash, you're going to contaminate all those areas of the orange browns. And similarly, if you went over with an all over yellowish wash, white wash over that white plumage, then you're going to contaminate these beautiful violet parts within this part of the bird here. So the idea essentially is to make up quite a bit of pigment and lots of little pools of water to get started with. Now, in the details underneath this streaming information, there should be all the colours that I have in my palette. And at the same time, I love these birds as well. They can walk in large numbers through your garden down the street. Yeah, I've seen that happen as well, Barbara. When I've been visiting the US, I just love it because they're so there, aren't they? I mean, they really, it is the water. But to that colour, you really need to make enough of it. If you go too thin, it's going to dry up much paler and it's not going to really work out how you want. So take care, mix up marine violet, but some of you may not have that colour, so I decided just to mix it very similarly with ultramarine blue and magenta or alizarin crimson, whichever you have to hand. Okay, so the blue is pretty much done. I can test it, and it's always good policy to have an odd piece of paper, and I'm just going to tear off a damaged piece, and to this end you can just make little mixes to see how that looks in the grand scheme of things. I think it could actually do with a little bit more magenta in there just to take it to that violet-y colour, just to shift the blue, and you can see that addition of the magenta has just done exactly what we want. Clean the brush out, keep the area uncontaminated, and I'm just going to see and make sure we're doing okay. I think we are. I'm praying we are. Okay, so now I'm going to mix up for my oranges and my lovely warm colours. So I'm using translucent orange. Now both Daniel Smith and Schminker do a version of this, and it depends which one you like. This is the Schminker one, and I like that lovely warmth in that colour. It really is a stunning colour. Now I'm going to mix up a little bit of Indian yellow for the plumage. Now you can actually touch a little bit of orange, and that's probably too much. A bit of a devil for going too far, but it's always worth considering mixing a little bit more. Getting freezing again. Oh no. Okay, people, I do apologize. There's not a lot I can do. We are hoping in the next couple of weeks to upgrade our hub and stuff here in the house, and hopefully we will have maybe less problems, but other than that, I really don't know what to do. Ben and I have been working hard to get this sorted out, and it just seems to rear its ugly head every time. So let's just hope that it doesn't keep on. I'm going to add in here, I'm going to come in with some colours that are darker and a little grayer. So I'm going to use some English light red, which is not everyone's immediate jump to colour. And to that I'm going to add in a little bit of Viridian. Now Viridian and red of course are opposites on the colour wheel, but it makes for a grungier, darker colour. Now we may or may not use that, but it's there should I need to dive into it. So once again I'm going to clean through my brush and I'm going to start applying some paint. Okay, so I'm going to come in and I'm going to start. My paper is a 300-pound Arches hot press paper. I do like hot press paper. I like the smoothness and I love the fact that you can be really aggressive with it when you need to for taking paint off as well as put it on. And it's 300 pounds, not to be confused with GSM. It is in pounds. It's 640 GSM, very, very stiff, and it is a full cotton linen paper. And the thing is that please don't worry about that if you're going to follow along with me or have a go at this one later. Any paper that you choose to use will do the job, and you can use colors that are not exactly the same as mine, but they are at least very similar too. Okay, right, I'm going to carry on then, Ben. Thank you very much. So I'm just going to come in here and I'm just going to work the whole of this work coming down the page. Now I'm going very steadily. There's no rush to this. This is a wash, and my painting or my paper is actually on a bit of a slant, so it's about 30 degrees. I'm going to work around the shapes of the bird, so I can do that very, very carefully, coming in, working around the plumage, around the body, just dropping in. The thing about watercolor is it will only go where you allow it to. In other words, it can't just go wherever it likes. Because of it, it will stop and it will only go where there's moisture to allow it. Now the thing is that it's a very warm evening, and I'm just realizing that I haven't got a lot of wiggle room when it comes to working that bead, and if I'm not careful I'm going to end up with some very, very hard to shift edges. So I'm going to work a little bit faster and talk a little bit less. So if I just go quite a little bit now, I do need to get this down pretty pronto. Now I'm going to start leaving little areas out. I should have done a few back up the top there, but never mind. We will come in and we will leave a few of them down through here, taking off that there, off the plumage, watching where I go. Concentrate a little bit more would be good. I'm suggesting and leaving areas where the little bits of browns and oranges will appear later on. Do need to have a little bit of tissue just to dab off a couple of pieces. There. Taking that right into the edge of the bird. Now it's not too much of a problem through here if you miss something, because the body of the bird is pretty much the same, although there's a lot of warmth under there, so I'm going to make an allowance for that. Just going to lift off very quickly. Now here, if you get stuck and you start making harder edges with your painting, then you're not going to come too many problems, because of course we're going to add in the browns and other colors, so we are able to sort of leave little areas of hard edge. So we start off with quite a nice wash at the top there, but as we come down we're going to deliberately leave more and more little places where we can tap in those wonderful brown marks later on. If I miss any through sort of forgetting where my pencil marks are, it doesn't really matter. They're there as a guide, nothing more. And I want to leave that because that's a little bit of beautiful reflection from the bird. We mustn't forget that. So I'm just carrying on. If I end up just talking to myself because I've got fed up, then I don't blame you either. I'm sorry that we've had a few niggles this evening. Right, I see a question from Keith. I will talk about that in a moment. I just want to get this done, Keith, before I end up with an issue that I can't solve. Just enough paint to do the job. And warm evenings such as this, then it really can be a bit of an issue trying to create the look that you're hoping to get, and without any issues. I'm going to let that dry up a little bit and then come back. Keith, your question is, would you consider using masking fluid to preserve areas of different colours under the wash? You can, and I have. To be fair, I'm not going to say that I haven't. I do have a love-hate relationship with masking fluid, because if you get it wrong, it can leave some almighty horrible marks. And always when you put it on, it will leave extremely hard edges that when you've peeled it off, you've got these sharp, awful edges that you can't really deal with. And because of that, it can create a terrible look in the painting overall. So I would always on a situation where if you can do without masking fluid, all the better for it. But I do understand also that there are several occasions when you just can't do anything else but use masking fluid. It's just the nature of the beast. But I'm never a big fan, to be fair. I've got it, and I've got lots of it somewhere, but I don't use it very often. Okay, this is pretty much drying as we speak, so I'm just going to pop in with a few, just see what happens. Just going to pop in with a few of these warmer areas, quite like that. It's very, very strong, so I'm going to temper it down. The way to temper orange down is put a little bluish colour to it. Anything that's blue, in a sense, like this lavender, will just take the power out of the orange. It's just almost, you can see how that's gone grey, and that's just dropped a little bit of power out of the orange. Now I'm looking at the image and I'm just tapping in little bits of information that could suggest. I'm going over the blue too, because the colours are pretty dry. I'm getting away with it, but I do need to be reasonably careful. That's gone the wrong colour. Didn't realise I picked in the wrong one. Get rid of that, start again. So yeah, the thing is that if you are here and this paint, the blue was too wet, then here this paint would start bleeding and moving all over the show, causing you too many problems. You do need to go on layer upon layer if you're using wet colour upon wet colour, to make sure that the colour you're putting on is slightly thicker and more concentrated, less water in other words, than the colour that's already there. And just coming up very carefully to where the beak is, there is a little bit of colour between the beak and the bird. Watch your mixes in relation to water and the amount of water and pigment that's already in place. If you just go too wet upon a wet surface, then it will just give you those awful cauliflowers. Some people love them, but they're not always desired, of course, so you do have to watch for that. I'm using a large brush because I'm sort of I'm trying to be careful, to be fair, but at the same time I'm aware that I'm sort of using it for broader areas, so I'm quite happy at that. I will come down in size of brush and soon enough. But I think that's looking quite nice, and it will dry back more cooler. I'm going to put a little bit of duller colour in there, and we're going to come back in with some other values in this. This is just the first wash, in a sense, the first layer of information that we're putting in. putting a slightly duller mix down through here. There's a lot more blue in this, a little bit of that green and red went into this one, but equally it's still showing up very, very warm against the blue. And I'm sort of tapping little marks in, seeing where I go. Yeah, just tapping little areas in place and come back out, pick up a little bit more of the warmer colour just to drop in over the top of it. And I'm trying to suggest those bits of weed or debris in the water. I'm not quite sure. I'm sure they are weedy parts that are popping out through the top of the water, coming through here, and we're going to extend those coming this way. Take some off of there. Okay, now there's quite a lot up through here as well. In fact, I think what this does need is a little bit of extending up this way. So I'm going to take that up through there, and I've gone off script, as it were. I'm making it up as I go at the moment with the term of where I'm putting these marks. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter, because if you took this photograph and everything is moving in the water and the birds are disturbing things, then whatever was there 1 second or two is going to change the next. It's a little bit like photographing a wave. If you don't get that wave cresting at the right moment, then who is going to turn around and say that it's wrong? It's not wrong. It's just that it changed the very next second. And unless you're going to display your art next to your reference photo, which I don't know anybody who would, but if you were going to do that, then maybe people would stand there comparing and criticizing, but you wouldn't do that. There's just absolutely no need to do that. I come in with a bit more of that duller color through here. So I've got a lovely warm color, but we're mixing it up. We don't want all one color. I'll pop in maybe the odd little bit of orange, just to suggest that some areas are picking up a little more light than others. So we're just dropping this color in place, and we're literally drawing with the brush like a pencil. We're not doing much more than that. We're just simply tapping color in, and hopefully it's in the right place. Now I know I'm getting a little bit heavier over here, and it's a lot less evident on the photograph. I'm not too worried about that, and nor should you be. Just enjoy yourself, just have a lot of fun with this, and it will spot on. And it really doesn't need to be spot on. You are interpreting what's in the photograph as you go, and I am not sitting here measuring and looking at every subtle thing. I've added an awful lot more in here than already should be, and I know this, but I'm not overly worried by that at all. Okay, I hope this stream is working out okay. Hope it's settled down. I'm just going to check the stats on my end just to see what's going on. Oh, that doesn't look too good. I can understand why it's lagging in places. But yeah, okay, well, we shall carry on, and hopefully we will win out on the day. Okay, so I'm going to bring out, there's quite a bit of warmth. I want to use that. A little bit of warmth, put in a little bit of red and a little bit more orange. I'm going to mix a little bit over there with that yellow as well. Just want to warm up under here, under these feathers here, because they're going to be quite cool as they come down, but there's quite a warm area there. Now if you find you want to take some of that away, just clean your brush out. I've still got a lot of mess in there. Get my towel. Clean it out and just soften. Just take some out like that. Easy done, but do it before obviously it dries. You can take as much out in different places as you want to. You can change the look quite easily by just coming in there, damp brush, take the water out of it, and just come and lift a little bit out here and there. And take that into the bird there and into there. Join that up there. Okay, once this surface is dry, then we can come back in and add some darks, make it sort of set up a little easier. And just drawing some of that paint out so that it doesn't get too heavy on the base, and it allows me to pop in and out with one or two darker elements further in, just lifting some of this out before it all dries, and then we carry on working down. Right, moving forward then, we're going to come in with a little less information down in some of these places. That was probably the heaviest part through here. Just going to tap some off like this and increase the darks to make them, yeah, just make them work for you. Okay, I'm just going to bring the last bit of colour through here like that, and I'm going to drag it through there and then onto here. 1 or 2 little bits. And then equally, once this is all dry, a few darker blue marks going through the water. Little areas that have been disturbed maybe. I don't know how shallow these are. I think in looking at the bird's foot that there's not a lot of water depth below him or her or it. Whatever. So I'm guessing that, you know, a lot of this stuff is on the shallows. It is of the Ding Darling. I have fond memories of that place, I've got to say. Right. Nothing else on the chat at the moment. Feel free to ask questions. That's why I'm here. Not just to paint and perform, as it were, but to answer some of the problems that you may have in your own work that you might like some help with. Now, what I will say is, if you are, as I said at the start, please just capitalize with a Q. That way I can spot them and answer them for you. Right, I'm going to come in here now. I'm going to use a lot more lavender in this color, and I'm just going to come in and really sort of degrade some of these colors coming through here and just suggest a few of these little ripply bits. Now, they are a grey color. They're not necessarily a blue color, but they are just little taps, and they do really create that stark contrast. I'm going to put a bit of cobalt blue with some of that and a little bit more lavender. I'm going to mix some up here so we've got slightly different blues going on, maybe some ultramarine in there too. Okay, I thought I had, but I will undo it. Let's take it out of the equation. And if I turn the wrong one off, please excuse me. I have. I knew I'd do it. Let's take this one off. There we go. Okay, so hopefully, and I don't know if it has been, it doesn't seem to have made much difference at all, to be honest, but we will carry on. So I'm going to come away from this brush because I've given it a fair old go so far in the painting. I just want to use several brushes so that you get an idea. So we're going to have it working in all for years. Oh, Barbara, you're so right with that one. It is so different. And I work in both, and there are times when you've really got to stop and think and put the right head on, because you can soon come in and work very, very hard only to wreck your painting because you had the wrong head on. And I got to remember many years ago when I was sort of getting into watercolor for the first times, as it were, and I have always been an oil painter and an acrylic painter, and mainly I started in oils, just as a little recap. And yeah, I mean, coming from oil to watercolor is huge changes, huge thoughts that you have to put in place. And so the thing is that that all said and done, you just have to put that right mindset together. So anyway, I'm just coming in and I'm sort of skipping. You can see I'm using a piece of wood down here. It's mainly used for when I'm painting oils or acrylics on here, and it's a butt, but it's actually very, very useful to allow me to glide a hand across. Now usually I would use my finger and I would keep a degree like that and make it move, but because that piece of wood's there, it's becoming very easy just to suggest these little marks and make them very, very skitty, very thin, very fleeting, just to allow me to suggest to you, the viewer, that that's water we're looking at and that the bird is standing in. We're going to look here, we're going to put a little bit of dark through here, suggesting that he's creating a little eddy from where he stood. And we're going to emphasize one or two extra marks as we move forward. But I sort of want to come in and leave that now, let that set itself up. We know where we've gone so far with this, and we're going to carry on now with the bird. And the bird, again, like I did with this, going to try and leave stuff alone and sort of put colors in that we need and leave out areas that we don't want to contaminate. If this was an all over, if this was not yellows and blues, not oranges and blues, then I would probably go over with a wash and set that up and let that happen. But it's not, because if I do that, like I said earlier, I will end up by just contaminating areas that I don't want. My yellowy oranges in here will turn my lovely blue violets to a disgusting grey colour. And if I had the blue all over, then my yellows and oranges on here would turn green and horrible. So you just got to be very mindful about what you're putting on here. And you've got to also remember that your white paper is your biggest friend. When you're an oil painter, Barbara, and I know you know this, but when you're an oil painter, you have the ability, of course, to make your whites sing with beautiful highlights, because we're working with opaque color, and because of that you have that lovely ability to create light through that opacity. But with watercolor you can't do that. And with watercolor, the moment you lose your white paper, to whatever reason that might be for whatever it is, once it's gone, it's gone. You'll never get it back. And it doesn't matter how hard you try. So you have to preserve your white papers for the longest part, and making sure that if you need white, you have it there. Now, I'm treating the white here with some reverence, but I'm also trying to suggest that there is that warm color in that white. So I'm putting it on, but I'm tapping so much of it away, so it will be almost a tint. I'm painting with a tint, and if I go too much further, my tint will just completely change everything. And so yeah, I keep murmuring to myself. I do apologize. It's merely that I am trying to read the stream chat at the same time as paint a picture. Anyway, bear with me. And I'm just going to come through here, and I already have there, you see that little bit of blue I was a little careless with, and so I'm just going to tap on that. If you work hard, and you have to be careful, because if you use a damp brush and gently tease at that blue, you may just release a little bit of it out, so it won't make too much of a difference. And if you do that, moving faster than I am, is lift it out. You're not going to get rid of it all, but you may just make a little bit of a difference. Too wet with your brush doing that, and you will just move the blue paint and create an awful cauliflower, which is something you really don't want to happen. So I'm going to come down in here. We've got a lovely glow to the back of that bird's head. Now mine is a little yellower than the bird in the photograph, but I'm quite happy with that. So we're going to move forward, and I am going to start looking at some of the blues. So I'm going to clean out, I think I'm going to clean out this. Okay, get rid of all of that grunge. And we're going to come in and we're going to mix down some blue violets. Now my blue violets are going to be probably, I could go with the ultramarine blue and alizarin, but because I have it, I'm going to be using a little bit of ultramarine violet. Now again, as I said right at the start, I mixed ultramarine and alizarin or magenta. It's almost the same color, but to this one I want to add in some cobalt. So I want it that blue violetish color, but I want a little bit of the yellow in there from the cobalt as well. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in very carefully. In fact, I'm looking at it, almost I want to put in a little touch and the merest little tint. Not like that, I've done it again. Cheers, Ben. I'm going to make that mix again. Always take your time to mix. Don't ever rush the mix. If you get it wrong, don't settle for it. It will pay no good at all to do that. I think I'm going to stick with that. I put a little bit of phthalo blue in there to create a little bit more of a yellow blue, and it's not the best thing to do. So ahead of the game, take that out as well. I want to put in some more magenta or alizarin, depending which one you use, doesn't matter. A little bit of blue. So we've got that little lovely purple. But I think that's too much purple. So the way to get rid of too much purple, one way is put some yellow to it. That will kill it and make it a dull grey. Don't want to do that. What I'm actually going to do is put a little cad red to that, and that will shift my purple to a grungy purple, because I've introduced some yellow into that mix of colour. So I haven't made a dull grey. The way to defeat purple is to put yellow into it, and that is the two extremes on the colour wheel. Can you use white gouache to add highlights? Yes, Barbara, you can, but if you don't have to, don't do it. They're never as successful as leaving white paper. The essence of a watercolour is the radiance of the white paper to come through your layers of paint. This is why many of the colours are not necessarily opaque. They are quite transparent or translucent, allowing the artist to create and render a beautiful painting, allowing all that paper to radiate through the colour. So if you do end up having to put highlights of gouache in, they should be little pinpricks. You often see people put a little catch light in an eye, or they put a headlight in a car, or some form of light somewhere, but not large areas. It just doesn't work. I've been following you, Drew, for about... Cool, Heather. Thank you so much for that. Right, okay, I'm going to move on. So, yeah, so I've mixed up these colours, as I was saying, that you can kill off purples, you can kill off yellows. But the way you do it will depend on the outcome. If you do it with complementaries against each other, then if you put blue and orange, you get a grey. If you put yellow and purple together, you get a grey. But if you add a red into your purple that is a grungy red, you're actually adding yellow in, but not as severe. And it does leave a little bit of a reddish colour. Okay, hopefully that is as clear as probably mud, I expect. But there we go. Hopefully we can make this now. And once again, just check it here to see if it's where I want. And if you look at the middle of the shoulder of the bird, it's that darker, deeper, duller blue that I'm trying to get hold of. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to put this in. And this is the shadow plumage of our fella, or lass, whichever. I'll make up my mind on what it's going to be in a minute. And I'm going to bring that down just carefully as we go. It can come right the way across this area, because anything else we drop in here now is going to be darker. So any areas where you've got darker color, then you can come in with this sort of middle tone, as it were. I come across the back here, a little bit of shadow getting into one or two places here, and also delineating some of the shapes of these feathers. And as they come down, of course, those feathers become a little more redder in here. So I'm working quite fast, putting a few shadow colors in here like that. And I'm going to end up with adding a little bit of orange to some of that. Pick up some of that orange, not too much, don't want too strong, but we've got a little bit of yellow orange into some of the shadows in there. And that's probably a little too close to the background color, so I'm just going to take a little bit out and reserve the right to change what I'm doing. And I'm just going to drop in one or two darker areas here as we come down into the base of our bird. And we've got some lovely orangey feathers in here, which I actually haven't allowed for. I'll bring that in there like that, tap some of that back, allow some of that to bleed. I'm not too worried. So I'm just going to drop in a few extra darks, and I'm not looking at painting actual feathers. I know a lot of people sort of say, oh, you know, you got to do this, got to do that. You haven't got to do any of that. You just simply enjoy the process of painting and enjoying what you're doing. You are adding wonderful color notes together to create, and I'm just dropping in little color notes here to suggest the shadows on the plumage, but I'm not painting feathers. I'm going to come in with a little bit of indigo. No, I'm not. That's too strong, way too strong. Let's get rid of some of that. Let's put some of that over on here. We can get rid of that. That's not a big deal. So I'm going to put a little bit of English as well, just to brown it up a little bit. And you can see I'm just literally tapping colors into place and looking at the darker areas, the darker notes around the throat, down the chin here, and coming down through here, separating the neck from the rest of the shoulder. And there's one or two other accents of dark in here. I don't want to do it so much that I lose all the blues. That's not the idea with this. I'm just simply trying to get that direct dark. Yes, you can use acrylic whites, and many people do over gouache, but either will work, and to a degree. But just be mindful of it. If you can get away without, then it would probably be pay you to sort of think about that and just not use any of them if you can help it. Just stick with using wonderful color and the white paper. I'm just coming in here. No, I don't want to get too heavy with this. I think that color there is a little heavy. I wanted some of these subtle little tints to be exactly what they are, subtle little tints. So I'm just using the damp brush and fusing a few edges together here and there so that we get a sense of all these wonderful dark parts, warm parts, cool parts, even a little bit of granulation going on in there with our bird. And I'm going to come back very quickly with some yellow into there. That's turned it grungy, isn't it? Automatically. A little bit of orangey browny colour into there. Just want to come in and just suggest the edges of some of these feathers and these plumes. And over the back there's quite a one that's lifting up here. I want to get that warmth in there, like that. Just dragging a little bit of that through just to suggest the odd feather that's got a little not broken, but you get a little undulation. Some of these feathers so soft that they have almost like a crimpling effect with them, and that's what I'm trying to suggest with that. Nothing more. Yeah, the thing is that when you are creating like this, then you're painting colors, and I know that sounds crazy, but if you can infuse more color, then it's so much nicer than just painting total value. When I'm an oil painter, I am a tonalist, I really am, but trying to inject color into a watercolor like this is so special and just works so beautifully. I'm just coming around with a little more strength of Indian yellow into some of these forms here so that they stand out. Okay, how much more of that I do, I'm not too sure at the moment. We're going to see how we get on towards the end. What I want to do now is to start putting some reds in, strength of red. Now, not a bright red. You can see where there is some bright red around the eye and part of the beak. Now I'm going to put a little bit of colour in just for that to start with. That lovely beautiful red, maybe even a touch of the transparent orange into there, translucent orange. Just come up around here, around the back of the eye, like that. And then there's very little more bright colour. So we're going to come in, maybe just put some down in here very quickly, using quite a dry brush there. I didn't mean to do that. I meant to have it a little more fluid than that. There we go. Lots of little lights. Leave a little bit of light if you want to. Coming down here, and then some nice light down to there where it's entered the water, and then the reflection this way. Our reds will change now. I'm going to put a little bit of indigo to that. See how that's corrupted that red down. And we're going to come down in here with a little bit more red, I think. Add a little bit more red into that. It's got a little bit too grungy. So we can do that. It's not a big deal. Come back in here. Look at the eye, around the back of the eye. Take that up through there. And looking at the shape. Almost I've lost the shape. I haven't quite lost it, but almost. Come around through to there. And take that down. Been a bit careless with some of this flicking around with the paint. I'm always doing that. So take a lesson from me and don't be so sloppy when it comes to cleaning your brush. Part of it is because I'm sitting at a horrible angle on here, you know, very, very close. It's nice if you stand up and paint doing that. So, yeah. Okay, where are we? Let's have a quick look at the chat. Okay. So anyway, I'm a little bit disappointed with these marks, but because it is so dry today, I'm not going to do much with them. I will simply try and disguise them. And I can't even call them little birds in the sky either, so that's a problem with that. But we will make something of them. Hopefully most of them will disappear. But it just shows you, be careful when you're painting like this. If you're not standing up or not, yeah, I'm working at this angle very, very close to because of the cameras, so it does tend to cause you a few issues. And there's a horrible mark in there. I've got to get rid of that too. I'm going to come in and I've put in slightly darker reds now. I'm going to come in and I'm dropping that colour in, and it will bleed and it will cause some horrible marks if I'm not careful. But I'm running it all the way through to the tip of the bill. So it's going to make that stronger because it is a real dark dominant shape. When it's dry, we will come back and we will add some darker notes to it. While this is here, I'm going to come in and drop down around through there, down the area to the water, and leave that alone. And we're going to do very much the same out this way. We're going to come through here to the shape there, and then we've got lots of little bits going on around the area there, and then up through to what will be lost into the shapes here. But while we're on that, let's get some of that yellow orange. Now, when you're looking at reflections, water is a great leveler. And basically what I'm saying by that is that whatever you see here, say bright light colors, it will be more dull in the water. You can see that in the feathers of the reference, and the color through here is darker. Likewise, often or not, darker shapes reflect lighter in water as well. So the degree of contrast between here and here is a lot different, and water will neutralize contrast quite easily. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to make maybe a little bit bluer. Just want to come in with some darks into what will be some of the forms and the shapes coming down through here in this reflection of the bird. Maybe the odd little warmth color up through here. Don't worry if my blues left do not actually work out exactly as our reflection. I need to get some color in there before I put the blues in, so I'm jumping a little ahead of myself. Let's come in with a bit of orangey color in here. Let's come down here and suggest that lovely color in there. I'm going to arrest some of that yellow, put a little bit of orange into it, then lift some of that back, so we just get that mere little stain. Going to take that all the way through here. Okay, I think that works. Running out of paper, I'm going to run to a piece of cloth. Okay, I like that. I like the way that that's just spread in there. Just checking. No, okay. Right, so moving forward. I keep saying that. Let's move forward. We're going to move forward. I want to soften, so I'm going to try and get some of this dark in here and allow it to fuse ever so slightly with some of the colors that are already there, because I want that subtlety, that fusion between the two colors. I'm going to bleed that out into there. Just let that run out like so. And I think we have a nice indication of our sort of reflective areas in the water. But you can't tell whether it's the bottom of the bird or, well, you can to a point, but you know what I'm saying. It's not essential that you recreate the exact shape of your reflection. It's not that important. We want a general sense thereof. Right, so let's go back to leaving that to dry a little bit, and let's come back into some darks and oranges. We're going to use some orange, not red, orange. That was the one that I should have gone for. And I'm going to put a little bit of indigo to that. I want a dark but very rich warm. You put indigo, making a dark with watercolors, even in oils, is to be able to mix dark complementaries, dark tints, i.e. ultramarine blue with burnt umber is a common one, or with burnt sienna is a warmer, richer one. You can use alizarin and Viridian, or alizarin and phthalo green. Make a different, cooler dark black. So I'm sort of using here, I want to make a really rich, dirty brown color, and I'm just adding into my oranges some indigo, which is quite a nice color, but again, test it, don't rely upon it. See, that's quite nice, but it is quite strong, so you may want to come up here a little bit, mix a little bit more orange to it first, so that you have almost like a halfway house before you jump straight in, because watercolor is a painting in degrees. So all I'm going to be doing is I want to put in, and I'm going to try and disguise some of those horrible marks that I flicked on here earlier. And I'm trying to suggest now areas that are dark within those bits of weeds. Some of them will hit on too dull, then you can come back in and emphasize any. I'm not going to, but you could do. There's nothing stopping you doing any of that. All I'm doing again is just sketching with the paintbrush, just using it almost like a pen, and just dot, dab, and leave little marks that I feel are suggesting more of what I'm aiming for. I'm going to put a few taps through here. Looks like that stuff is just disappearing there and picking up a little bit more here. And I'm going to come in with a few darker ones. See how much darker. That's quite a bit darker. Look at that. You see how that works, and you can allow some of those areas just to merge and bleed with each other as you move forward. And I think we are sort of getting to the point where we are starting to see some degree of perspective, and we can start seeing back on the bird there. Bring a little bit more into there, and I've isolated that back, and it throws that feather out to the viewer. I can come across here, and I can do a little bit more of that, because that's very, very useful. And in sort of painting language, it's called counterchange. Basically, if you've got a dark, everything this side of it should remain quite light, and it throws the dark out. Equally as much if you've got a light side of the bird, if you can make quite a bit of that dark or darker, then it will make the bird stand out even more. Very, very quick, easy little ways of increasing how you can throw your image out to the viewer. I'll bring in a little bit more of that here. It's a little, I wish I'd just added a little bit more white space there, but it's not the end of the world. We're still making good of what we intend to do. Now some of these will have shadowy areas underneath, because where they hit the water they have a little degree of height to them, so the joint or the meniscus between the water and the object will just be slightly evident and give you a little minute shadow. Again, I'm going to use that space there to throw out that feather and re-emphasize the back of the bird. Lots of taps, lots of dashes. And we will infill some of those with some of those blue marks as well. Just checking the thing. Okay, no more on there. We're going to come through this way now, and we're going to do much the same sort of thing. We're just going to add to the information that's already there. And you remember when this orange was here and I put that cooler lavender blue in there? Look how that has given us a beautiful transition between the two. And to a point we have got some beautiful, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm going senile, I tell you. Dear. It'll come to me in a minute. I do apologise. Old age. But I love the effect of it anyway, if I can remember what it is. And it will come to me. Probably next week sometime. Dear. Anyway, let's crack on. Now, I'm going to say this now before I do forget, because I'm getting older, I've got to say, is the fact that the next stream on my channel will be a fortnight from now. And I'm not sure what it's going to be fair. I'm trying to change the media as well as the subject matter. And I'm sort of haven't done any oil on here yet. I would love to do an oil. If anyone's interested, that would be fun. Just let me know and add comments. You know, if you've got any thoughts about tonight, anything that you haven't asked and you think of later, there's courses. It will take you to my Podia site, and on there is so much to be had in terms of free content, as well as free courses, free information. There is also a lot of paid stuff there. There are paid courses as well. I don't do it all for free, but there is so much to offer you. But one thing I would suggest, there is also a free to get involved with community. And the community is such where you can, if you do any paintings from here or even your own paintings and you want help, then get involved in my community. It is young and it is growing, and it doesn't have fantastic figures in terms of everybody using it and asking questions all the time. But I hope if enough of you are interested in getting involved, it will do that. So literally just go on over to it, join it, and get involved and ask questions and do stuff. I will put a special tab in that will be linked to anybody who does a little bit of work from my streams, for instance, and you can upload your paintings there, your finished pieces, and get sort of accolade for it. Or if you have questions or you get stuck and you want a bit of help, then you can put them up there and say, Paul, look, do me a favor, what would you suggest I do there? I'm not always going to be on the ball and answer within a few minutes of you putting it up there. I'm very, very busy, but I will look at it as often as I can. And if you're not too impatient, you will get an answer from me at some point relating to the question that you've got there. So please, by all means, get involved with that. There's a lot to be had from doing so. And I hope that as time moves forward, then there will be an awful lot more happen on it as more members join and get involved. Am I preaching? I probably am preaching. I do apologise. But yeah, well, I appreciate that, Barbara. I mean, I do guess on a lot, but that's always been my way. I'm not one of these. I rarely do voiceover stuff on my demos and my tutorials, because I've been an active art demonstrator to Liquitex and other companies, Staedtler, over the time in my career, that I just quite happily talk. Some would say too much sometimes, got to be fair, but I can happily talk about what I'm doing, and so I do tend to ramble on a little bit sometimes. I do apologize for that. Most of those of you who know me will know that I ramble and accept that. You listen to me long enough, you know I'm going to say and chat and chit-chat and chat some more. But I'm loving the way that this is starting to develop now. You know, we're getting this second and even third layers involved, and it's all about contrast. It's all about the yin-yang of warms and cools, oranges, complementaries, as well as lights and darks in all of those. But I do hope some of you will go and get the reference. You can get it off of my Podia for free, download it. You can go over to my Patreon. There's an active Patreon as well, where you can download. You don't have to be a patron to download the reference. There's a bit of a smudge there, so I'm going to create a few more watery effects moving this way and disguise some of my mistakes that I put in earlier. Easily done, not a problem. There we are. There was never a mistake there at all. It was always meant to be. But there you go. Yeah, as I say, there is a Patreon. The reference is there for you to go over and use and download to learn from. Not for commercial use, if you don't mind, but certainly for learning from. It's there, and I'm happy for people to download it. The line art for this is there as well, if you haven't already been there and got hold of it. And the thing is that, as I say, you don't need to be a patron to do that. Although while you're there, if you want to get involved, feel free. I'd love to have you on as my latest patron. We are always looking for new patrons to get involved, and you're not signing into a fixed fee. You can leave whenever you want to, or stay as long as you want to. So that's always there. Well, that's a bit heavy. Let's just lose that a little bit. A little bit too heavy there. Take some of that back. Carry on. Now this can be quite monotonous, but I'm trying to make it fast and furious if I can. Mixing up some of the warms and some of the darks. It's not all one and it's not all the other. It is merely a collection of different color values, tapped and dashed and dotted. I've got all the time in my head. I'm looking at the reference. I'm thinking ahead. Oh, cheers, Ben. Yeah, that Ben, you just reminded me. The idea of this is not just for me to sit here and do. For those of you who feel so predisposed, you know what I'm saying. Those of you who fancy painting along when I am painting, by all means go for it, because I have always, or I try to put all the paints that I'm using. You don't have to have exactly the same ones, and you don't have to have exactly the same papers, boards, or anything else. If you're within the ballpark, that's fine. Heck, you don't even have to paint in watercolors to do this if you don't want to. You could have got everything set up for tonight by getting the liner in position and going for it. You could be painting in oils. It doesn't matter. All I want to do is give you some good information about painting so you can take your paintings forward. That's the whole idea. That's why I'm doing this. You know, I love to see how my students in my gallery get a lot from my tuition. They enjoy what they're doing, and I just want to see other artists gaining from my years of knowledge so that they can take their own artistic efforts forward and enjoy it. Because at the end of the day, painting is not about the end result. Unless you're a high-end professional and you make your living at it, such as myself, then you have to perform and do good work, or no one's going to buy it. If you don't buy or sell your work as such, then you're going to go hungry pretty fast and you're not going to pay your bills. But if you're an amateur painter who, I actually don't like the word amateur. I just like people. Amateur is such a horrible word, I think. I think we are all learning, including myself. But basically, whatever stage you are with your artistic endeavors, my idea is to help you make more of it and enjoy it. And at the end of the day, what I'm trying to say is that whatever you do artistically, don't make it about the end product. Make it about the enjoyment of the process, the doing. You know, getting that line art in place, getting it ready to go, getting your colours out, making sure everything's ready. A little bit like me in trying to get this tech organised. But all of these things allow you to have a lot more fun about what you're doing. Kind of a bit of violet. And I think that's more important. You know, a piece of paper that goes wrong, painting that goes wrong, is not a painting that's gone wrong. It's merely a learning curve to the next painting. You learn something from about practice. But when I get students going, I'm going off tangent, I do apologise. But when I get students come in, I have to really rein them in, because they come in thinking they're going to end up doing masterworks after the second or third week, and it doesn't happen that way. You've got to put in some ground. You've got to practice. You've got to see where you are in things and what floats your boat and where you need to go, and put the time in to learn the craft, learn about the paints that you're using, the medium you're working in. All these things are so important, and some people just absolutely forget that. Like I've forgotten where his foot is there. That's the joint there. I mustn't forget that. But anyway, I do digress. I do apologise. When I get onto a real topic, then I just keep chatting. Heather, I hope you do have a go at it. As I say, the reference is there to be had, and you don't need to spend any money to do it. Just enjoy yourself and have fun. And get in touch through the community chat on my Podia, or if you're a patron you can get involved with that and get in touch with me that way. But if you don't want to spend out, then just talk to me via the community chat. I'll help you as much as I can. That's too dark. Right. A little bit warmer as we get a bit closer, I think would be good, just to give a little bit more heat to our mixtures. Another layer going over some of them, of course, as well. There's way too much out the front here than there was in the photo, but don't, as I said earlier, don't worry about that. Working as fast as I can. I mean, there's two things, the time and also the elements. Very, very warm in my studio. The thing is, in the morning my studio is quite cold, and then the heat on it all day, it warms up slowly, and by the time the evening comes, it's too hot. You can't win, can you? Right, enough of this. Let's just come in with some reds into there. I want to make a bit of a grungy dark, because this has gone off a little bit here. I want to make that dark. I'll make a bit more indigo in there. And I'm going to bring that down from there. And then we've got that lovely warmth in the elbow. It's a little redder than I'm allowing. So let's come in with a bit more red to that. Make it a little more obvious. And then bring that down through there. And then it just gets very, very dark. A bit more indigo just to bring that down into this area. I'm going to make that disappear. And a few extra lines just to look at the ripples running through the water at this point. Okay, so that works. Soften some of that through there. Little bits of eddies in the water, so you can look at that and you get that little fractures to the shapes, and it looks as though there's sort of movement in the water, not all the way down, just one or two, just to suggest that there is movement there in the water. And a little bit up here too, just to make sure we suggest that this is the reflection of our bird, like that. Come back in with some purity orange, bring that into there. Not too weak, not too wet, just enough to put in a little bit of light through there, down there, and into the back of that reflection there. I'm going to wait, so I'm going to leave that alone, let that set up and do what it wants to do. Alright, so where are we? We're not far off in many ways. There's very little detail in the eye and that yet, so I'm going to come in and do that. Now we've got very little area of eye 2 really shown. Just going to put in a suggestion of a yellow. I'm going to use a different yellow. I'm going to come in and clean that up. That's meant to be Aureolin. It looks green. Aureolin is a very cool yellow, and I'm going to put that cool yellow in there and then leave that to dry. Come back to it in a moment. I'll put a little touch of pure Indian with a bit of orange into it in the forefront of the eye there. There's a little bit of light there. Going to leave that alone now. And I'm going to come back in. I want to put a bit more depth, a bit more indigo this time into there. It's quite dark, very strong, but I'm going to weaken it with a little bit of lavender. I'm going to test it on my paper one more time. That's not bad as it goes. I'm trying to come in with a suggestion of darks under here, like that. I'm going to come in and I'm going to put in one or two areas like that. But before we finish, I'm going to come in and soften them. Now we've got a little bit of dark here, and that's gone where I didn't want it to go with the red. I want to tap that off there, and then what I'm going to do with a brush, dampened, soften some of these edges like that, just merge them together. Now I will admit to you that doing this with a hot press paper is far more successful than doing it with any of the cold press papers. They don't tend to enjoy being manipulated in this way. You can do it, but you have to be really careful or you will destroy the surface. I'm just giving that a lovely little sense of dark, maybe a little warmer in the places up through here, just under there. Just adding a little extra dimension to the lights and darks under here. Coming down here a little bit, the odd one or two, just connecting through there, connecting. Don't want to make too much of any of them. Almost I'm dry brushing here at this point. Okay. Now if you feel you've got too many hard edges anywhere, then just come back in and tease them. Like I said, this is a lot more successful with hot press paper, smooth paper. The hot press process, I'm guessing, and I'm not a chemist, not a physicist or anything of that nature, but I'm guessing that the hot press color will give it a different degree of treatment on top, which allows the fibers to bond in a very different way to cold press papers. Keith, question: how much time do you spend looking at the photo and planning what you're going to do before putting brush to paper? Good question. I suppose I think that you've got to look at all the elements. I mean, if you're looking at like this bird, for instance, you know, you've got to look at the habitat. You've got to maybe cut bits out that you think are irrelevant. You've got to look for the composition. How does it work? So all of these factors, and I have tens of thousands of photos at my disposal that I've taken over many, many years as a painter, and I'm constantly going through them. And sometimes you look at a photo and you dismiss it, and then a year or two later you could go back and you see that photo and you think, I like that. You don't know why. You don't know why you dismissed it before, but you did, and you know, you've come back round and you've got a different way of thinking about it. So I think planning is the answer to your question, in as much as the better you do your planning, and that includes how you're going to execute it, as much as how you hope it will end up. You've got to look at that as well. You've got to look at the way that you will create it, as well as sorry, I'm just losing my way a little bit, Keith, and for a minute I'll be back with you shortly. What I'm trying to say is that you have, the better planning you do, if you can treat it a little bit like a chess game, and that little bit of extra planning will pay so much more. I want to lift some of that out. That's what I was trying to do. And I want to come back in with a slightly darker around the top of it, which I didn't have. There we go. I wanted a darkness in the back end there, but I'd lost a bit of the beautiful orange light through there. I just want to try and bring that back. I think I've actually lost it, but I'm not going to worry too much about it. Alright, so where are we? Yeah, let's get in with some of these lovely blue marks. Now I've used this brush quite a bit. Let's put that one down now. Let's go to a rigger. Lots of people ask about riggers. I love them. They are my second favourite brush of all. And they will do very much the same way as any other brush will do when it comes to adding little bits of line. And that's all I'm doing. I'm adding some watery effects now to finish this off. And you saw me do it with the other brush. You can do it equally as much with a rigger. And I think that most people, when you are using brushes, they get very hung up on having the right ones, enough of them, how many do I need to buy, and all these things, what type. especially for watercolour. And I think that half a dozen brushes is probably too many. I've got, these are the ones I pretty much use all the time. I don't use the little one very much at all. I tend to have 1, 2, 3, 4, and they are my staple brushes, and they're all from Rosemary and Company. And as I always say, if you drink, they're all handmade, and they're very well handmade. And if you have any ethical reasons why you wouldn't have a sable, these are red dots, and Rosemary has worked extremely hard to make these a synthetic brush that will allow people with ethical issues when it comes to getting suitable brushes for watercolor against the traditions of the sables that we've pretty much always known to be regarded as the best for watercolor. Now the red dot series that she creates dispenses with the need of that. I use them exclusively. But if you do order from her, whether you are in England, Australia, New Zealand, America, it matters not. It doesn't matter a jot. She exports all over the world, but they are handmade. They're not made through a Chinese company or any other manufacturer. They are handmade in England by a small team of people in very much, well, I think it used to be a cottage industry. It's now probably expanded way beyond that. But anyway, so yes, look at them, and if you get any, just put my name in capitals unbroken on the affiliate link on checkout, and I get a little thank you from Rosemary for suggesting them. But I've got to say, I've been using Rosemary's brushes for probably way over 20 odd more years, probably longer than that. We go back a long way, does Rosemary and I, and as such I use her brushes for acrylics, I use watercolors, I use for oils, and I seldom, if ever, use anyone else's. I do have other brushes in my arsenal, don't get me wrong, I'm not suggesting that I won't have any others, but I do have majority of everything. It's always been Rosemary and Company. I've never been let down, and I've always had great products from her. And so best artists around the world today use her brushes. So well worth looking them out and ordering yourself a few. And the red dot series, as I say, they are synthetics, but they hold beautiful amounts of water, as you can see I'm doing with this rigger right now. And there's not one animal died in the creation of this brush, gotta say. Should I say that? I think I can say that. Okay, cool. I think I know that one. I think I've got one of those. Is that the sort of larger round brush with the rigger on the end, Ben? I'm going to use that dark line. See what I'm doing here? Remember I was talking to you a little bit about using counter change to throw out the bird? What I've done here is I brought that little bit of dark water line through here, like that, just kissing the top of the bird's back into the head, and that just allows me that extra bit of coverage to suggest that the bird is there and it's standing out a little bit more than it did, so that it doesn't look as though I've just stopped it. I'm going to take it on a little bit that side as well, but you can see what that was all about. Just little horizontal lines, just suggesting little waveforms. And bring in a little bit of warmth to some of those, because I see some of them have a little bit of a warm tendency to them. So I'm going to bring a few in there. Just the odd one, a little bit of warmth in there. Doesn't have to be too much. Maybe a few up through here. And then the last part of this painting, I don't know what we're doing for time. Oh, we've been going quite a long time. I do apologise, everybody. So, yeah, we're going to bring this to an end very soon so that you guys can go and spend the rest of your evening and not having to listen to me all the time. I'm just going to come in and sort of finish this area off. There's probably more of this sort of linear stuff that can be done, and I may do that in the morning. I don't know, just see what time we've got towards the end. I've still got a bit of the bird to do, and I really must do that. So I'm going to come in with a little bit of more indigo in there, and I want to put in a little dark statement through here in the water, a little bit of line and shadow, suggesting where the bird's foot meets the water. It may be right, it may. I think that'll work. Haven't got away with that. You could actually use a little bit of gouache on that point if you wanted a little bit of the meniscus to catch the light. We'll look into that towards the very end. Okay, and I'm going to come in and I will use the little round brush just for the first time. I want to put a bit of a dark mark and indigo, a little bit of warmth into that indigo. Just going to come in here and suggest the bird's eye like that. It'll suggest on that side, and then we've got a few parts of the facial mask and the darks coming around here to separate the eye socket from the rest. Then we've got a little bit of warmth, the orange in there. I'll be very, very careful. I'm just going to bring up my reference to give me that extra boost. There we are. That's all I needed to do, just to give me a look-see under the shape. So I am working in quite a bit of darks and lights when I come around through there. Sorry about that. Now I'm going to tap because I realise that there is a very strong light. I've absolutely missed it. Lovely red, and I don't think I can actually get it back. I can't. I've actually lost that. So that's a bit careless. Got it on the back, but not where I wanted it down here. I'm just going to see if I am going to be able to lift. Probably not. I think probably leave well alone. I could come back in with that little bit of white we spoke of earlier. Just see if I can get away with that. Gently working at it. Okay. No, I don't think I'm going to do too much with that. I'm going to have to live with that mistake. It's not, I know it's there. I mean, somebody else would look at it and not see the problem. I'm going to come down here with a little bit of dark. Just a suggestion of the change between the two mandibles. A bit careless. I don't like working with that small brush too much. Bigger brushes. Lifting some of that dark that I put off before it gets too involved and dried out. Okay, got away with that one. So what I think I'll do is I'll just pop back to using the rigger for that. I just need to find out what I've done with it. It's on the floor, that's why. Bear with me. All right. I'm going to come back in with that colour once again. Using a rigger this time, you've got a little more control. But it does need to be dry. The area is too damp at the moment, so I'm going to leave that to dry. Come back in, go around to another area that we can do is under here. A little bit of strength of red in the darks. Trying to put in that little bit of the face mask here. Although it looks dark, it's not necessarily dark. Coming down here with the lower mandible. taking a lot of care. Like that. And then the upper mandible, which is thicker. Then I'm going to have to wait to get that dark line in. And it's quite red, right on the tip. Bring some of that in. Almost a pure cad red going in on the end there, just to lift that beak up a little bit more. Some of those colours of red coming down, almost a pure red, very strong. Okay. I hope I haven't offended this White Ibis too much. Gotta be said. Thank you, Sharon. Appreciate that. Good. I'm glad, Keith. Thank you. Alright, so some of the final parts that we are going to be doing, just coming in with a few extra darks. I want to get in and I can't do that right now, but I am just going to come in here and just suggest a little bit of dark coming down there. Not as dark as that. I think we need to be a little bit more respectful of our darks. I come here and put in some flecks down through the chest here. Almost dry brushing, but it does help with the idea that there are some feathers on the chest that are not laying as flat, and I want to soften those on the outer side. I don't want them to be hard. It's more a suggestion than an actual. Gently teasing some of those forms out. And where do we need to go now? Well, I do need to get that part of the beak in, and I can't at the moment, so I do have to be patient. And come back to just check one or two other aspects out. I think pretty much we are done apart from that part of the beak, and there's always extra things that you can do, I'm sure, but I think we've done a nice amount of work. I'm just going to come down here to suggest the shape of the neck coming down there. Again, just soften off the lead edge. Nothing more is needed. I do want to just suggest though about the where are we, underneath. I'm just going to bring that up and going to put in a little bit of warm. I think I could go too far with this too quickly, so I'm just going to be careful. And I think that would have just gone too far. I'm just going to leave that alone. I don't think it needs it, and I'm quite happy with what we've got. And I feel that if I do any more with that, we're going to lose everything. So one final check to things. I feel that could be darker here, but I'm not going to do that. I'm quite happy with what we've got. There is, however, the odd little mark of debris, which I did leave room for. I'm going to put some of that in just to finish this section off. It just breaks up some of the area of the reflective surfaces in the water. There's stronger yellow oranges down in here as well. You see that I haven't actually changed my brush. And I do that. I'll pick one up and I keep using it, and I can do the whole painting that way. Now, I shouldn't do. I know I shouldn't do. There is one thing I actually realise I have forgotten, and that is the reflection of the beak. I'm just going to sort of make it a little bit wishy-washy in there so that it looks like it's breaking out with some of these forms coming through there. Okay, let's do that and use a little bit on the tip and just put in the odd little extra highlight. Never too much. There's a little bit on the edge of the beak there, but you can't go too much with it. You're not going to get away with it. There's a little bit of light I would like to put in the top of the eye. Okay, not too much again. Could be, you see, this is the whole thing with highlights. You can all of a sudden, oh, let's have another bit there, another bit there, another bit there, and all of a sudden it looks awful. Just be very sparing. Highlights are exactly as they say, highlights, not everywhere. There are just a few of them, just to bring the painting to a conclusion. I also realized that I actually haven't painted the area between the head and the shadow. So let's just come in and correct that. Easily overlooked, I hope. I'm going to come in there. A bit more water would help. Don't know why I missed that, but I completely did. I come in with some blues, Ultramarine, and maybe a tap of Alizarin, not too much. There you go, just enough. I'm going to come in here and put in the top of the head here. Now there is a little bit of light coming across the top of the eye socket, so be mindful of that and bring that down, and then it comes into the top of that as that does over there. There we go. Now then, I think that mine is gone a little bit too far that way. I'm going to take some out, then come back in and put some back in. Crazy, I know, but I think that works. Soften that there. Almost there, I think. I really do. Yeah, I've done the highlights. I didn't want to put too much in. I just wanted to show you can. And so what I'm going to do is just sign it, I think, and then take a quick look and then take on any final questions. I'm just going to put my name down here. I don't like my name too obvious, so I'm just going to put it down here out of the way. That's a little more obvious than I thought, but there you go. Sorted, signed and sealed. One White Ibis from lovely Florida. Let's just go back to the chat to make sure I haven't missed anything from people. Am I putting the reflection on the back? Keith, reflection on the back. I'm trying to look at it, my friend. Hang on. I've lost the stream. There we are. Move that out of the way. The reflection on the back. Are you speaking of down through here, those lovely little warm colours? I hadn't thought about it. I'll tell you something else I do think I want to do. Is I'm going to put a glaze. I'm going to use a bit of a cobalt colour. Very, very thin, because all this is dry. What I want to just do is I want to come in here and make a lovely blue glaze colour over here. Softly, softly. I want to suggest a little bit more blue in these areas. So by coming over with a bit of a glaze and then teasing out, we can bring that blue colour back in. I think that's important. I'm going to do the same thing down through here. I think it needs that extra little bit of blue as a glaze form through there. That's lovely. And it also now links into the top of the head as well, which is important. And as regards the back, let's just see where we go with that. Very thin, lots of water. And I'm going to come in here. I'm just going to wash down that lovely colour into there. just warms up that surface, and I think it could be even a little warmer than that because it gets quite pinkish through here. Now these are glazes, nothing more than a glaze. You go too heavy with them and you will disturb the paint next to them or underneath them, and you have to use them very, very sparingly. But I think that's probably all I want to do with that, just to warm up the bird's upper plumage. I'm still not quite sure what reflections, Keith. Oh, the beak's reflection. Yeah, sorry, I did do that. Sorry, my friend. Yes, the beak's in there, but it might need a little bit more emphasis. So let's just see if we can do that. It's a little bit insipid. Let's just warm it up a little bit more, because it is quite a dark statement. There we go. One beak. I'll lose those last two bits. There's the beak. All right, everybody. Any questions before I terminate this stream for this evening? It's a little bit quicker than the last one. I was aiming to try and do them in an hour to an hour and a half for the YouTube streams, and when it comes to my paid versions on my Podia in July, they will be much longer streams where we can get a lot more work done. Oh, okay, Keith. Sorry, I didn't see that, my friend. Yeah, so the next live stream on YouTube will be in 2 weeks' time. I'm not sure of that date yet, but please look on my website for what's and when and how and what I'm going to be doing. I'm not quite sure yet. I will have a good think about it in the next week, and then I will put it out ready for you guys to see what's going on. And I hope that by the time we get to the next one, I'll have ironed out one or two of these horrible things with the stream, because it is being a nightmare tonight trying to keep everything on track, and I don't even know if I've actually managed that. So apologize to you all if it has been an absolute mess up in terms of the quality of the stream, lags or dropouts. It's one of the horrible things. Thank you, Connie. I appreciate that. And yeah, it will be there to watch and view and enjoy tomorrow and forever, really. And I hope you get something from it. But I've had a ball doing it. I really do. I don't need much excuse to paint, and I really enjoy painting, whatever the subject, to be fair. And it's just nice to have people like yourselves who are willing to give up an evening for a couple of hours and listen to me rattle on about painting. But anyway, I'm gonna probably see if any questions come in, and I'm gonna wish each and every one of you health and happiness. Stay safe wherever you are. Enjoy your painting. Watch the stream. Put likes to it. Add comments. Get involved with my community, my free community over on my Podia site. The links are in almost every video on YouTube to go and do that and find it. Get involved. It doesn't cost you anything, and the more people that are active in it, the more people get helped, and the more you learn, the more you understand. So yeah, get involved with that, and hopefully I will see as many of you as possible in a fortnight's time. And I am also going to be putting out an of the full narration. So hopefully some of you will go over to the Patreon and get involved with that too. And it costs you $5 for the back catalogue or $10 for all the new stuff as well as the back catalogue. Take care, everybody. Have fun. See you in a fortnight, I hope. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.